Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 fragrances that I tried out this year, so stay tuned for that. And if you like fragrance reviews, top pick lists, cologne comparisons, hit that subscribe button for more content. Now, I tried a lot of fragrances this year, and for this list, I've decided to pick out 10 fragrances that I tried and I really enjoyed, but I didn't buy a bottle of. So these are fragrances that I bought samples of, but I haven't picked up a bottle. Now, some of these are going to definitely be on a list for something I would like to pick up in the future. But, you know, since I like to keep my collection small these days, I might not get all of them, but nonetheless, all of these were really, really great fragrances. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the list. And at number 10 spot is Venom of Angel. This is by Piotr Czarnicki. I probably said that wrong. I know he's a Polish guy. And it's actually a really interesting brand story. He's basically a one-man show. So he does Shihan, which a lot of people really, really love. I actually was not a big fan of that one. But Venom of Angel is a really nice, sweet fragrance. It has, I believe, white chocolate in it, which is something that really does set it apart. I know there's a lot of chocolate fragrances. And so for me, I find it hard to find a chocolate dominant fragrance that sort of stands out, and this one definitely does that really well. And one of the ways it does that is because it has a white chocolate note, which is interesting, adds a little bit more character to it, and of course it does have some nice depth behind the fragrance as well. Performance is quite good, as I tested that one out, so it is a nice one. It's a little tricky to get. I think you can get his fragrances on Lucky Scent, but they're not always in stock. You might be able to get them elsewhere. If you happen to be in Poland, I do know they're much cheaper if you buy them in Poland. So if you do visit, when we can travel again, keep that one in mind. So the next one is from Genre Parfums. It is one of their originals, and it's called Expletive. This is a really modern green fragrance, and I really like the way that it's done. It does remind me a little bit of Shiso in the sense that Shiso has this sort of tart rhubarb note, and it's a very modern green fragrance, unlike, say, something like Green Irish Tweed, which is a green fragrance, but it's more of a classic. This is a well-done modern fragrance. Also has those nice green facets, and it does also have a tartness in there. And so I don't know if it has rhubarb or something like that. I know rhubarb is not a listed note, but it does have some tartness there, which makes it a really enjoyable fragrance for me. So a nice, modern, a little bit tart in the opening, green fragrance. I think it's worth checking out if you do end up picking up some samples from Genre Parfums. The next one, I almost didn't put this on the list, but I really like this one. And I almost didn't put it on the list because it was discontinued recently. And that fragrance is Tobacco Oud. And this is one that a lot of people talk about. It's a love or hate fragrance, according to a lot of people. I know Jeremy talks about this one all the time as a fragrance that has gotten him the most positive, but also the most negative attention out of any fragrance that he has. I'm a little surprised by that. I mean, it's a boozy tobacco fragrance, and there's a lot like that. It does definitely have a very mature smell, a very refined smell. So I guess people who like or dislike those types of people might not like this fragrance, but it opens up with the really beautiful whiskey note. I believe it has some kind of fruitiness in there, dried fruits, something like that as well, and a really nicely done tobacco note. Just excellently done. Well-crafted fragrance from Tom Ford. I probably won't end up picking this up because it's already been discontinued as far as I know. It's going to be harder and harder to find, and I'm not really one to pay premiums for a discontinued fragrance when there's so many fragrances that are not discontinued that are absolutely fantastic and are totally worth the money and aren't going to run you some premium because of that. Next one, Aqua di Gio Pro Fondo. This is potentially my favorite of all the Aqua di Gios. And one of the reasons I actually didn't buy this is because I do have Perfume, and I just, like I said, I do like to keep my collection a little bit tight. And so having two Aqua di Gios, unless I like it was my favorite fragrance ever, probably wouldn't do it. Now they are very dissimilar, so you could very easily have both in your collection if you like both of the fragrances, in my opinion. But it's just so bright, so uplifting. It's a much more aquatic kind of take than the Profumo, which is a little bit, has incense. It's a little bit more mature with the patchouli as well. And I do like that one. It's a really great, easy wear fragrance, but I find Profondo is a little bit more uplifting, a little bit more fun of a fragrance, but still manages to be, it's not an immature fragrance. It isn't something that I would say, I mean, a teenager could wear it, but it's not something where I think it fits teenagers the best. So it is a really nice fragrance, definitely best for spring, summer, unlike Profumo, which could probably be worn year round. Profondo has okay performance. It's not as good as Profumo, but I do really, really like that fragrance. And like I said, if I didn't have Profumo, I might get Profondo. Now, next one, Lumidl Extreme. So this one is a really nice sort of cherry tobacco with a little bit of almond, and it's done in such a way that it is different from other fragrances. So it doesn't remind me of, say, Herod, which is a cherry tobacco. It doesn't smell like Pure Havane. It does smell a little bit like Insurrection 2 Wild, which is a Pure Havane clone, but I find that it doesn't have much honey in it, so it is quite a bit different. But in any case, it is a really nice done. I believe it has leather in it too, actually. So it does come across very mature and very interesting. It is one that performs quite well. So it is one that I also enjoy, and I would consider this to be an excellent fragrance to buy if it becomes available for a good price on discounters. For example, I got Ideal Cologne for like $25. If this reaches anywhere near that price, I think it's something definitely worth picking up. It's a really nice fragrance. Next one. So I've tried some fragrances from Serge Lucians. I know they got a lot of fragrances. They're not really talked about that much, except for Chergy, which is talked about a lot. Although the other one I do hear about a little bit is Ombre Sultan. And honestly, I do get why. It is a very, very nicely done amber dominant fragrance. And if you want something with that big sort of, I always describe it as like a block. When the amber smells like a block. It's not overly sweet. It has a little bit of sweetness in the dry down. It does definitely get a little bit of sweetness with it. It has an almost powdery vibe, but not quite. And there's something about it that's just thick like a block. And it is that kind of amber for me. But it is really, really nicely done. Really, really well put together. Next on the list, in the top 5, we're in the top 4 now, actually. The next one on the list was a 2019 release, but I tried it this year. And I definitely really like this one. It's called Toy Boy. So you've heard a lot about this one. I know a lot of reviewers have raved about this one. And I think one of the biggest things it has going for it is that it's a designer fragrance and it's different. So I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people lately, there's been so many designer releases where they all follow the same formula. And I get it. They all want to have a piece of the successful pie. They all got their blue fragrance and whatnot. But it is so nice when there's a nice, and I do believe mass appealing fragrance that is released by a designer and it's different. It's something different. Another thing that's nice about it is it's a nice sort of spicy rose that, it's a rose fragrance. Like I mentioned, it's a rose fragrance that is nice. It's well done. I'm not a big fan of rose, and yet I do like this one. There are facets to this fragrance that remind me of Criminal of Love by Killian. So sometimes the rose comes off a little bit like chewing gum. And, as this one dries down, it's when the rose really starts to pop as an actual rose smell. Before that, I get sort of a rouge type accord. But it is really, really nicely done. I like how spicy it is. It's a little bit fresh, so it's really nice for the spring, I think. And you can get this one at discounts for a very good price. It is definitely something I would consider picking up in the future. And it's a unique designer. So we are in the top 3 of the entire year for fragrances that I tried that I didn't buy. Number 3 is Molt. And this is by Aqua. And if you like boozy fragrances, and especially if you like something with the smell of a sort of single malt whiskey, this is a really, really good one. So it has a very nice, very boozy opening that does come off much more like a single malt whiskey, but it's not done in such a way that it smells too pungent or too... If you've smelled some single malts, they have sort of an old man kind of smell or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not a huge fan of single malt whiskeys, but it smells really, really good. It's a really nicely composed, classy whiskey smell that dries down into a very, very nice woody base. And so this one is really, really well done. For me personally, I would put it up there with Single Malt by Killian. Single malt, I find, is a little bit more of a rye whiskey, where this actually comes off like a single malt whiskey. So if you do like that idea, and if you do like single malt, it's worth trying out for sure. Very, very well done. And it does perform quite well as well. Good boozy fragrance. Number 2 may come as no surprise, and that is Rehab. This is like, it's really good. Like, okay, so it took me a long time to get around to trying this fragrance, mostly because I have Spice Bomb Extreme, and that's probably why I haven't or probably won't buy this fragrance anytime in the near future. But the fragrance itself is masterfully done. If you think about like the difference between Pure Havana and Naxos, where, you know, it's like Naxos is the masterfully crafted version of Pure Havana. That's basically what you have. Is Rehab is the absolute masterfully crafted Spice Bomb fragrance. So it's just so well done. Spices are so nice. It has a very nice bit of depth, whereas I find Spice Bomb Extreme does smell good, but it can be very, very sweet sometimes. And also it is the case that the spice is very one-dimensional. Not with Rehab. Okay, so I find it doesn't get too sweet ever, and the spice has a little bit more depth, a little bit more character, and I really, really do enjoy that about it. So that is the number 2 spot. The number 1 spot, and this one is definitely going to be on a buy list for the future, and this is probably a note that I just found out recently that I really enjoy, and that is Black Vines by Kerosene, and the note in question is licorice. So licorice, when it's done as like it's funny because I actually hate black licorice, but black licorice, or maybe anise, they do smell similar. That vibe has this really dark, mysterious quality, and I really, really like that. And I think this year, as I've tried more fragrances with licorice or with a heavy dose of anise in them, I also have found out that I really, really enjoy that in a fragrance. And so Black Vines has a very nice licorice anise kind of character that goes through a bit of a slightly green phase, where I think is what the vines in the Black Vines comes from, and returns again to a little bit more of a licorice vibe as well. And it is well crafted, good performance. I'm a huge Kerosene fan. You could almost call me a Kerosene fanboy if you really want, but it is a brand that I really enjoy. They have a lot of really great fragrances, and I love the value. I think the price value proposition for the brand is really, really good. Anyways, guys, I'm going to cut the video there. That is my top 10 fragrances that I tried, but that I did not buy. I might buy some of these in the near future or in the coming year. We'll see. But leave a comment down below. What fragrances did you try this year that you absolutely love, that you have on a buy list perhaps, or that you want to buy in the future? Let me know. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.